Do you have ancestors that came from Ireland and you're wanting to find out more about them? You're wanting to find your family there in Ireland, whether you're from the United States or Australia or any other country. I got to provide you a warning. I see far too often people adopting family that they believe is their family in Ireland when they might be wrong. So how do you ensure that you're on the right track and you're actually finding the right people in your family and not some stranger that was not related to you at all? Well, when you're doing Irish research, you got to be careful of a number of things. And I am so fortunate today. I have Natalie Bodle here from Ireland. She's here for Roots Tech, and she sat down with me. We're going to talk a little bit about how to prepare yourself for research in Ireland. What do you need to know before you start researching there so you don't make mistakes? Or if you want to hire somebody, what do you need to know from where you live, whether it be the U.S. or anywhere else, before you go over there? So Natalie, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you, Aimee.
All right, so what are some of the things that we really need to be careful of when we start? Because you and I were talking, and I know there's a lot of wrong trees on Ancestry out there where people have adopted incorrect information. Can you tell us a little bit more of cautions and things that you've seen that are incorrect so that we know what to be careful of, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the right things to do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose, a very good example is that, you might see someone who has adopted, they've seen someone who's got the same name as their ancestor, and they think, oh, that must be my ancestor. Maybe thinking that there was only one person of that name in the whole of Ireland, but actually that's very wrong. Because of the Irish naming traditions, that can mean that you can have numerous people with the same name in a very small geographic area, because those same names were handed down in successive generations. So you can imagine that you might have 20 Gerald O'Reillys living in a 10-mile radius of each other. So you need to make sure you know that you've got the right one.
And that really complicates things. And I have seen that a lot myself. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of ancestors from Ireland, and I still haven't figured them out because they're common names and I have absolutely no idea where they came from. So what are some of the other things that we need to be careful of?
Okay. Well, what I would say is that before you start your research in Ireland, find out as much as possible about the ancestor in the country that they emigrated to. So you can have really useful information that gives you, more clues about how to find your Irish family. So marriage records, does the marriage record name their parents or their father? Does their death record name their mother and their father? Maybe even the place of birth. Do census records maybe name? Sometimes census records will provide a county or a place in Ireland where an ancestor was from. Does their headstone name where they were from? Did they have other family members who emigrated and lived nearby? So that chain migration, sometimes you need to go sideways before you can search down your ancestor line. Naturalisation papers can be really helpful. Did they come over with anybody else? So was there other people, for example, on the passenger lists of a boat? Maybe other family members, maybe neighbours. So do all that research in the country they emigrated to and piece all of those clues together. And generally then, really what you want to do, certainly before civil registration records in Ireland, is to try to be able to tie down a parish where your ancestor came from, because that's the clue that will help you to determine what records exist for your ancestor and where you might find more information about them.
So if somebody comes to you and says, my family was from Ireland, your immediate response is going to be, we got to try to narrow this down, right? Because otherwise it's a needle in a haystack. Is that correct?
That's absolutely true, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes you just have to, I ask people, I prompt them, I give them questions. But sometimes there's just not enough information to go on and not enough to be able to narrow down where they might have come from and find out more information about them.
Yeah. Look at all marriage records, all death records, everything. You just are hoping for a clue where somewhere they put in at least the county. So another place that you can go, actually, there was a bunch of books written in the United States around the turn of the century They begin in about 1880 and they go to about 1920. And these publishers would come into the area and they would say, hey, you know, if you want to give me this much money, I'll include you in this county history. And a lot of families would do that. And in the United States, that's another good place to go where you might get the extra information that you're not finding elsewhere. And then, of course, family Bibles and other things like that are really helpful. You really have to do the work in the country that you live in before you can go over there. Do you have any other ideas of places to look to get that information that helps you?
Wills is another very useful type of record.
Yeah.
So, for example, executors were quite often relatives, and sometimes beneficiaries can be named who are still living in Ireland.
Yeah.
So, you know, someone might leave a bequest to a sister or a brother or a niece or a nephew. So if you can tie down where they live, that's a really useful clue. Another really good thing is the Irish naming tradition. So think about your ancestor. What did they name their children? That might give you the clue as to what their parents were called and what their brothers and sisters were called. So that can be helpful too.
Tell us that. Can you quickly give us, because some people may not know about that Irish naming tradition.
Yeah, so the Scottish and the Irish naming tradition, very similar. And in general, now it wasn't a law, but it was a pattern, and used frequently enough that it was known as a pattern. So the eldest son was named after the father's father. The second son was named after the mother's father. The third son was named after the father, and then subsequent sons were named after uncles. For girls, the first daughter was named after the mother's mother, the second daughter was named after the father's mother, the third daughter named after the mother, and subsequent daughters named after aunts. Now that can be knocked out of kilter a wee bit if a woman and her mother had the same name, for example, but generally that's quite a good clue as to what the family names might be.
And that illustrates why you have so many repetitive names in a particular area, because they've done that. So, but one of the things that I'd like to caution you about that, though, when you look at naming patterns, is there may have been a child that passed that you were not aware of. So don't hold on to that with a vice grip, because you might be wrong there. So just always, as with anything in genealogy, you just have to kind of keep an open mind, but just keep those things in mind. So that's great. So I hope with these tools, now you are better equipped to find your family and where they came from in Ireland. When you're ready to go over there, if you want some help, I got to recommend Natalie Bodle. Her company is Roots Revealed, and I'm going to put a link at the end of the video to that so you can check that out, as well as this other video that we're doing where she gives you her top 5 genealogy websites that you can check out from anywhere in the world. So, and guess what? They're all free, so you want to make sure you do that. So, Natalie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Aimee.
Have a great day.